I'm really good with disappointment. And then I eventually ended up becoming one of the most successful coaches in the area. So that perceptual shift in brain was also that every disappointment for me is actually a window or a door to a new opportunity, and that there's many angles, promises, desire, time, all of that means nothing.
And psychologically, they disassociated from it. They didn't have the experience that you did, where you went back into. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chat. Today we are with professional comedian and comedy teacher Paul Moomjean. He is going to take you through a wild ride of a rejection of a cupcake, leading to anxiety in high school and becoming a wrestling coach. Stay tuned. So how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never had one?
I don't like bananas, so I actually do a gag reflex. But if I explained it to someone, I'd say, imagine the most lumpy mush in the world rolling around your tongue, and you have a constant desire to get it out of your mouth. That's how I would describe the taste of a banana.
Now, do you remember having your first one and having this reaction?
Yes, it was actually as a small child. My great-grandmother used to make cereal for me, and she cut up some bananas. She had done that before. It was always just cereal. And then I ate it, and I just started to gag. And I, over the years, the taste of banana, like that kind of, it's almost a little syrupy. You know, there's a little bit of a hint where you go, oh, it kind of tastes like I describe it as a rotten pancake. If I eat bread and they don't tell me it's banana, I know it's a banana flavored at least. So, which is ironic because you know what it actually looks like the most delicious thing sometimes is those frozen bananas at like Disneyland and other theme parks. So I know I can't eat one, and I know that I don't even particularly care for the texture of the banana, but I have accidentally had banana over my adult life.
And when you accidentally have it, this gag reflex, is it the body saying it can't take it?
That I to be perfectly honest, I don't know. I'm okay with oatmeal. I'm okay with other fruits and vegetables. There's something about bananas that really bothers me. Now, I'm a big believer in Freudian psychology. I think he gets thrown under the bus a lot for stuff just because he's the father of it, and always the old school OGs always get, tossed and thrown aside. I would say that I think there was probably something that happened with my childhood, with my parents, my grandparents. There must have been a moment in which I was probably eating the banana. Something may have happened. Maybe I was watching something on TV that created a connection.
Mm-hmm.
That and I'm pretty bad with mayonnaise. That's the only other food that I really don't do. But if I accidentally get some mayonnaise like in my shrimp, I'm okay. Right? Or not my shrimp, I'm sorry, my sushi. Like, sometimes I'll get like a sushi shrimp or something. They'll have a little mayo with the crab. And that's okay. I can kind of survive that. Even if there's a sandwich, I can eat it. If that's all you have, I could survive. I don't want it though. But with bananas, it is the most illogical part of my entire human experience. To be perfect.
Anyone in your family have the same response?
No, people like bananas in my family.
So you were how old when you remember the gag reflex?
Oh, probably 3 or 4.
3. So something must have happened before then. Do you have a memory before that?
No. I do know this, is that my great-grandmother, who we called Mimi, she gave me from what I was told, she kept trying to give it to me over the years. So it's possible that I may have had a gag reflex, and then in future attempts to give me a banana, it became an unpleasant experience until finally I just didn't do it anymore. So yeah, it's you know what's interesting? That if I didn't like chocolate, I know people don't like, things that are universally beloved, like a chocolate or something like that. I probably look more into it, but even when I've accidentally had it, I've realized that I don't like it. I
Right.
don't respond well to it. There's no reason for me to try it. I'm 40 years old. There's other foods. So it's kind of, it's not like,
You're trying to
it's
make it
not
some
like
kind of kid medicine with banana flavor.
right. But it's also not like there's a job that requires it. It's not like you go to a job interview and they look at you and they say, here's the banana, and then they watch you eat it, and you're like, oh, I don't eat bananas.
But protein smoothies, 9 times out of 10, all the smoothies have a banana for consistency. You'd probably never be able to work in a juice shop.
So when I used to go to Jamba Juice, I actually, for a while back in 2010, I actually challenged myself. It was kind of the anti-supersize me. I only ate at Jamba Juice. And I would get these low-cal meals. They had some really good food there for a while, like very low calorie, low sugar, high protein, plus they had the drinks. And I would get, and there was only one thing, it was an Orange Dream machine. That was the only thing at the time that I could get on their menu, because you're right, everything had a bushed banana in it. And so I got that, and then I started making my own drinks because, wherever I go, I become friends with the staff. And so I asked them, hey, can we make this? No banana, add this instead. And I said, charge me what you want. They go, no, we'll do whatever. So I started making my own drinks. And then there was people that would come in and they saw what I had and they go, what'd you get? And I said, well, we made it up. And then they get it. And then there'd be like, it would never be on the menu, but I actually would have like 1 or 2 people that would say, I'll get the Paul.
That's so funny because at my coffee shop, there is the Paula. And I have made up my own drink according to, I don't have the dairy, but I want the protein shot. And then I want the decaf, blah, blah, blah. People are like, what is that? I go, oh, it's the Paula. So maybe there's something in the name.
Yeah, no, we're obnoxious people. That's all that I know.
Let's just call it creative individuals.
Sure.
So when, apart from this issue with bananas, do you remember as a child having a moment where you had a perception change and you looked around maybe at the family or authority figures and changed your outlook or changed your course of action as a result?
I think for me, my parents got divorced in the 3rd grade. It was 1990. It was Easter break. And there is something that I kind of maybe had that I believe is more maybe psychological. I remember someone had brought in for the snack time for the day before we go on our Easter break, had brought in these cupcakes. They were chocolate cupcakes with white frosting and the green candy grass with like little eggs on them. And I remember really wanting one of those. And I went to the teacher and I said, when do we get to eat those? And they said, after lunch. But during lunch, my mom came and told me that my dad and her are getting divorced and that we have to leave the school right now. We have to go back to the house and get some stuff and then leave for the night so that my dad could get everything out. So we had to, but here's what I do remember is those cupcakes. I remember not having them. And I remember really, really being angry because I didn't know what divorce was, but I knew what cupcakes were. And I knew that I wanted that. And someone had told me I couldn't because of a decision they made. And it wasn't my fault. And the teacher promised me one of those cupcakes and I didn't get it. And there was a psychological shift in my brain that you could be promised something, you could desire something. Now, again, I know this is a 40-year-old. At the time, it was just I wanted the cupcake.
Absolutely.
But I do believe that I learned in that moment that promises, desire, time, all of that means nothing. Because you can actually be told you will get anything you desire but you may not get it. And
so then, did that then put you on the defensive?
No, what it did is it changed how I viewed all of my life in ways. I mean, I really would say that like I'm pretty good I'm really good with disappointment. Like it almost, instead of making me, now maybe it's why I like to eat a lot. Maybe there's that Freudian subject where I'm searching, it's my Citizen Kane, it's my Rosebud, I'm searching for this cupcake that, is made literally 30 years ago. But I think that what it did is it actually allowed for me to accept the fact that not to get too excited if things are promised. If they are promised and they don't come through, it happens. So that to me, I think was actually like whenever people ask me, they go, wow, you took that really well. I go, well, in third grade. And I can tell that story. So the fact that I still remember it, it's my most distinct memory of third grade. Now, of course, it also is a association. It's a symbol associated with my parents' divorce, which was very shocking for me and caused a lot of, obviously changes in my life. But I do believe that at a young age, that was probably the biggest shift I ever had. And then the second biggest shift would have been in seventh grade when I was 12. And I remember I walked onto my junior high campus. We had moved from the valley to Simi Valley. And so new school, I knew two people. One of them was the grade above me in eighth grade. He wanted nothing to do with me first day of school because, I wasn't very cool. Shocker, I know. But I didn't have friends. And I remember walking around the campus, but I remember looking up and seeing mountains everywhere, which didn't exist in Van Nuys. There's no mountains in my hometown. It's some trees and streets. And I'd seen mountains, but I'd never seen mountains from my school. And so to look around and see that, I saw that symbolically also as a kind of God's protection over me, is how I kind of viewed it. Like I'm safe. And Simi Valley at the time was voted the most safe city in America. And I can tell you that I understand the psychological appeal of living in a community where mountains are surrounding you. Like, even though there's a lot of fires in this, you feel like, oh, I'm in a safe place. Other places can't come in. And if I want to go out, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna go to the other side of something. And I know that I don't know, there was something about those mountains that really spoke to me as a 12-year-old boy who was very scared that first, week of school.
So the mountains made you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
Do you still have that relationship with nature? It makes you feel safe?
I would say up to a point. I mean, I have a relationship with God is what I would define it as. I was raised evangelical Christian. I understand, the metaphysical world is more complex than how maybe theologians try to define it. But I would say that I have a pretty conservative view of Christianity from a theological standpoint, who God is. But at the same time, there's a lot of mysticism in that. There's a lot of my connection to nature. I can feel it when I'm at the beach, I feel very different when around the water. I'm a big fan I love fog and rain. I love the kind of coldness of night. I love all of those elements. I'm actually a bigger fan of cold than I am of heat. And so as much as I enjoy living in California, I live there because, to be perfectly honest, it's cooler there as opposed to harsh, right? So like I don't know if I want to do a New York winter. I don't know if I want to do a Boston winter. I don't know if I want to do that. I know for a fact, though, I don't want to do an Arizona summer. So California allows for me to have that kind of non-antagonistic relationship with nature, while at the same time providing just snippets of thunder and lightning and rain and things to have those kind of moments.
Well, health-wise, it's absolutely been proved scientifically that, each different physiology can thrive better in specific climates, right? So you have an observation at 12, it made you feel safe, connecting to nature. And now, as you have gone through the years, you recognize, whether we want to call it energetically, but you recognize the changes of how you feel within different aspects of nature.
Yes, very much so. I love driving through the back roads of Ventura County the other day, and it has these big sweeping mountains and canyons and all these great things, and that's really cool. Or going through trees and feeling like you're kind of in the forest and stuff. With that being said, I hate camping because I love showering. Like there's certain aspects to nature that I find very much goes against my own personal comfort.
But right? That's interesting, though, that, the association of being in nature means going camping, and I have a similar response because it was freezing cold in England with damp ground, sheets, you get up to pee, everything is, and it rains the whole time. This is not my idea of being in nature. But it doesn't have to be like in nature. If you have, like, it feels like it, a connection to whether it's with mountains or the energy of whether the change of the season. So right now we are changing into fall or autumn, really. Like, this is where it gets cooler in Los Angeles, and it feels different.
Yes. I also believe that there is a different element for me, in the sense that I believe I can appreciate the beauty of nature without wanting to have the harshness of nature.
Absolutely.
But I see that also as the way I believe that a lot of people are like that relationship wise, which is I can appreciate the beauty of somebody from afar, but not necessarily want to be in the thick of things with them.
But that's similar to the disappointment, right? That you take disappointment well, like you see the bigger picture of something.
Right. But also massive commitment issues. Right, because camping is a commitment. Driving through the forest is very different than living in the forest. And so if I go into the forest to observe it, and I have to now deal with the dirt that comes with it, the wind that comes with it, as opposed to appreciating it from the safety of my contained vehicle, where I move at the speed I want to move at, control the air conditioning the way I want to control the air quality, top down. I have a Corvette, or not a Corvette, a convertible, so I can go top down, top up. There's ways in which I can enjoy it and dictate my enjoyment. But I don't like the idea of going into nature or going into the ocean or going into those things and not being able to control.
Right.
So I like the elements from a beauty, from an aesthetic standpoint, much more than I enjoy them from almost like the adventure standpoint. The adventure is annoying to me.
I think that then gets to the definition, people's definition of what be in nature is. So, if it's just hiking, right? So up from where I live, you got streets, and then you go up, and then it's as if you're getting close to the mountains, right? And one can feel in nature, but it's not really, because you can see the houses. But the ions that happen, the grounding that happens being in nature, can be replicated if one even watches or feels a movie as if you're there as well. So it is, like you said, a psychological aspect that I think you naturally have a capacity to tap into, right? Without having to suffer. Because it sounds like you don't particularly like suffering, even though you grew up with a very strong Christian philosophy of suffrage, right?
Well, there's different types of suffering. There's physical suffering, there's emotional suffering. Emotional suffering for me has been very easy. Right, that's a very easy thing. I don't like physical suffering. So that's very different. People have always said, are you afraid of death? Never. Are you afraid of pain? Physical, yes, not emotional. Emotional pain comes with life. Physical pain actually is much easier to restrict in your life. If you don't take a lot of physical risks, you won't have a lot of physical pain. But you can literally go to a supermarket and still have emotional pain, because you could still have an experience that is either the person there yells at you, somebody gets mad at you. So even in a safe environment, emotional pain is always going to happen. Physical pain is much more controllable. And therefore, I look at that and I go, I don't like physical pain. And I was a wrestling coach. I was a wrestler. I understand it. But even in that context, there was rules and guidelines and protocols in which at some point the arm can only move back so far, the head can only be, twerk so much, and there's a referee, there's coaches, there's people. There's still an element of control and safety. What makes nature so exciting for some people is the fact that they actually get to release control. But then at the other end, they may not be able to release control emotionally. So these are the people, you ever notice that some of the greatest huntsmen in the world, the people who can survive nature, can't say more than 2 words? That's kind of the stereotype, right?
Right, but what about your relationship though? I'm more interested, I don't care about them right now.
But that's my point, is that what I started to realize when I looked at nature, I realized I was appreciating its beauty almost more than my friends who appreciated the experience. My stepdad and my grandpa loved going camping. They loved going beach camping. They loved getting dirty. They loved all of it. I hate all that. but they also couldn't tell you anything historically interesting about, the places that they had been. Whereas I would research the beauty of the place, the historical background of the place. I would realize that this, like when we went to El Capitan, we were in the Santa Barbara area, and I, as a kid in seventh, eighth grade, and then I came home, and I remember there was like just as the internet was being kind of created, and I remember researching things through AOL, but that's how I saw it. I saw the beauty of it as being intellectual and visual, not so much physical.
So after you've had that shift with nature, when was your next big perception shift?
So that would be about 7th grade. I would say that after that, probably my senior year of high school, which would have been about 5 years later, it goes back in line with disappointment, but it taught me value. I was a very dedicated high school wrestler. I got injured on the very first practice. I took out my ankle. I was not going to make it for the first month and a half of the season. And as a senior with my last year, this is very disappointing. I worked very hard and lost a lot of weight, lifted a lot of weights, did a lot of running. And so I realized that the team was going to have to make some choices because I wasn't eligible. And those choices involved people wrestling in my spot. And this caused a small mental breakdown on my part. My senior year, I had what would be a pure anxiety attack. And that pure anxiety attack, I'm in my house. I asked my mom, can you drive my brother to school? He was a freshman, I was a senior. Can you drive him to school? I'm done. I just need to rest and miss ceramics. And she's like, you can miss ceramics. Well, after ceramics, I remember calling her work saying, I can't get out of bed. I said, I'm on the floor right now, like literally holding on like to the sheet and the phone.
And this was emotional pain.
Yeah, because I realized that I may not have a senior year of wrestling, which when I gave up everything for it. I didn't do anything else. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to the off-season tournaments. I did everything I could. I wasn't even very good at it, but I enjoyed the activity. And what it did was I ended up going to a movie that day. My grandma came, took me to lunch, got me out of the house, and I went and saw a movie called Without Limits about Steve Prefontaine. And he died. He was a world famous runner. And the movie talks about how he didn't view successes as wins and losses, but personal effort. And I needed to hear that. And it was just me and my grandma in the theater. Well, that actually completely changed my mindset. I showed up the next day with crutches, and my wrestling coach looked at me and said, how about you blow the whistle and you run the drill? So I'm yelling out the things and running the clock because they're like, this way we can walk around. And even at 17, I was a 40-year-old man. So I could run the practices. They did. No one, I had been there for 4 years. They never let anybody run the whistle. And I'm blowing the whistle, I'm running the bell, I'm doing the thing, and we ended up having a great year. We took second in league, had the entire team make it to CIF except for me, but I was able to run practices. That eventually, the next year, I became an assistant coach. And then I eventually ended up becoming one of the most successful coaches in the area. So that perceptual shift in brain was also that every disappointment for me is actually a window or a door to a new opportunity, and that there's many angles.
Do you think that because when you were younger and you'd had this experience and a perception shift with the cupcake, you were open to hear that movie and that message?
Yeah, that I believe that that whole weird little cupcake story that I think, it's always funny when you tell people like, no, that's a moment in your life. No, moment in your life is when you have to go into the hospital and see a parent die or this. No. Those things can be, and they usually are, but you know what? The little things in life are the ones that tend to stick with us, I think. And
well, when we're younger, they have a harsher meaning more depth, imprint on the nervous system.
And I do believe that the ability to be able to handle rejection and disappointment allowed for a very quick turnaround from the anxiety attack. And it was very crippling. I physically was like really in a ball and just crying. I had no idea what to do because I realized I may not have what I really worked hard for. And then upon seeing the film and realizing that I knew that life was full of disappointment, it allowed me to shift into another gear, which is, oh, well, how else can I help the team? So if I can't help the group with, lifting something, can I organize and order something? Can I do this? So I ended up developing amazing administrative skills. So a lot of
So
times,
many people, though, I mean, I've had guests on the show already that had incidences when they were with high school sports, and psychologically they disassociated from it. They didn't have the experience that you did, where you went back into it and said, well, what can I do? What can I do to still be a part of something I love?
Yeah. I think that, I coached for 16 years. I wrestled for 4, and I coached at every level, like literally 5-year-olds to 30-year-olds at the college level. And I can tell you this, there's a great expression, and I'm not going to try to make a judgment on people, but there's an expression I love. Sports does not build character, it reveals character. And a lot of people, when a sport becomes difficult and it's no longer fun, and they bail. And that's most people. And that's not necessarily that it's a poor character flaw, but what it does reveal is that they were not in it for the actual kind of deeper meaning of whatever that sport is. I mean, we've seen enough movies to know that sports it's a religious experience for many people. Sports is a way in which communities actually come together. When you think about like the old Greek the little states that would come together in ancient Greece, right? And these little communities, that's for the Olympics. That's what the Lakers, the Clippers, the Boston Celtics, the whatever it is. It's a community getting together, and no political affiliation matters, no religious affiliation matters, race, gender. We're all in that stadium together. We're supporting the same cause. And so something about that when you see it as a giant, almost metaphysical experience, something that allows all of us to take away all of our hatred for the other people on our side and to come together in that moment. I think that that's what developed in my head about sports around that time, was that the sport is bigger than my attitude towards it or my experience in it.
And when was this? What year? Do you remember?
Yeah, 1998, 1999.
You're going to say 1998. So the reason why I ask is because Nelson Mandela, that's what Nelson Mandela did to bring the country to unite, was through the sports team.
Yeah, with rugby, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a wonderful film about it with Matt Damon and Morgan Freeman.
Absolutely.
Victims.
To find something that transcends race, transcends culture, age, right, gender, and how can we unify in order to commune beyond our, as I would say, small self, right? Our own self-ego ideas. How do we get to that a bigger picture with that? Another way that we do it here is through meditation, having a way to de-excite the nervous system. And those of you who are curious about what we teach, there's the Vedic meditation stories. It's a free ebook right now. You'll find the link down there. And that has true stories from individuals who learned the practice and how it changed their life. Normally people who would never learn meditation, and it's the only publication globally that has unedited true stories of people's experience, and mainly because it goes as a technique to change the nervous system from going from fight or flight. Predominantly that's where we're in our ego, because we need to the restorative state, also known as the relaxation or the parasympathetic. And when we're in that place, we're actually able to be more receptive. And it sounds like Paul had that experience when he was younger, and a connection to be able to hear either your own truth to then take action moving forward. Now, do you do anything now you go on stage and you perform to help deal with anxiety? Have you had any further attacks after that time in high school of anxiety?
I've had minor attacks, with moments, but the moment that I start to feel like, this is becoming overwhelming, I stop what I'm doing, a lot, and I just go, okay, it's time to take a mental health day. When I was a high school teacher, the second to the last weekend in October, so whatever that was, around the 21st to the 23rd, I would take that Friday off, and I would go to the movies, because the big film festivals had usually already happened. And then what happens is they're releasing the Oscar films. So like in one day, I remember seeing like Birdman and Boyhood and all the big Oscar contenders in one day. And I would go to the ArcLight Theater and just watch 4 movies. And so no students, I'd have a sub take care of everything, and I would just spend the day doing that. So that was a form of meditation, which was really just getting out of my own head and stopping anything that was kind of bothering me. And I learned that because one year I didn't do that, and I kind of had a mental breakdown in the classroom where I was just kind of like, I'm tired and we're not doing anything today, just shut up. And they all got it. They're like, this is not you. So everyone was very forgiving of it. But I realized if I don't take mental health days, if I don't allow myself the opportunity to take breaks and to do things that I love, I will go, a little stir crazy. And so that's important form for me of some type of meditation. But then also, there's a lot of quiet time that I have meditating on scriptures that I'll read, or YouTube videos about anything from the brain to theology to discussing financial economical peace, ways in which I can reduce bills and do things. So things that are kind of like filling me with positive things that I can then have applicable, right? So
absolutely, yes. And this is a wonderful use of the literal translation of the word meditation, right? Medi, mind. And of course, where did it come from? It came from the Latin monks, right? They had Latin and they were writing the Bible. They were translating it, and they were placing their mind, their attention on that word of Christ. And nowadays, when we have the word meditation, it's almost like a doctor saying, just come back and I'd like you to get a bit more exercise. Well, are you walking around the block, slipping on your Frappuccino, or are you training for a marathon? It's completely different ends of the spectrum. And yet, with the word meditation, it can mean so many things. And it's really, what are people talking about exactly with meditation, and us actually unwinding what that is, So just for those people who might be new or not know and come across this lovely video here, it's such a broad spectrum, and you can check out some of our videos as a live stream called Can't Meditate, where I go through a whole plethora of possibilities of what meditation is. There's fundamentally concentration and non-directive, but having that time out for mental health is exceptionally important here. I want to thank Paul for joining us today on our Cosmic Chat and his shifts in perception. If you've enjoyed it or you'd like to support us, please hit the subscribe button to help us move forward. And you'll see our mission statement there, going to the world to try and help not just change people's mindset temporarily, but actually change one's consciousness. When we have a moment, and Paul articulated this very well when he was younger, and he had a complete shift in consciousness and went back to the game. And we're not in a place of fight or flight. We're more following our own path, and we are not at the effect of stress or shutting down our lives so much. And so this is what we want to do, is bring a practice where we'll get the system to go back online, more to neutral, to be able to hear those nice hints and messages and be able to live our life more fully with that. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you on the next Cosmic Chat.